Hello everyone, it's Silvia from Parcel Locker. Welcome to my channel. Today I'm so very happy because we are going to have a lot of fun when it comes to Oracle and Tarot decks pairings. You know that's my favorite thing in the world, and today it's actually going to be a VR, so I'm actually looking forward to lots of people picking this up. Originally I saw this video on Danny Mystic channel, and the hashtag is top 10 deck pairs, but the original video was from Meg White from Art Garden Oracle, so I'll make sure to link both videos in the description box below. Let's have a look at my choices. So the first deck I'm going to show you are the Radiant Wilds Tarot pair up with the Moonology Messages Oracle. Now the Moonology Messages Oracle is relatively recent. It's from a house, a publication, and the Radiant Wilds Tarot from Nat Giesberger has been published by Rockpool. These two together are just, I don't know, it's just a match made in heaven. They're absolutely beautiful. This is recent, this is not recent. I'll say probably a year and a half ago that was published first in Australia. But it looks like they've been made for each other. Let's have a look. May I just say, even the backs look really beautiful together. Look at that. So let's see how they pair up. So these two, I was really looking forward to pairing these two up because the Moonology Messages is, this is the third deck by Yasmin Boland that has been, let's say, taken by inspiration according to the moon phases. So we've got another two Moonology decks preceding this one. The first one was just called Moonology, I believe. The second one was also Moonology, but there was a second keyword, and this is the Moonology Messages. But I have to say, this deck has got a much more oracle feel to it than the other preceding two. So let me just center it on the frame and perhaps zoom in a bit. So every time I talk about the Radiant Wilds Tarot, I always refer to the feeling of being at one with the cosmos, that this deck will just give you these kind of feelings. It's incredible because it's based on the desert, as you can see. They both actually have that kind of theme going on with the desert. You know, it's a bit of a photographic collage. I don't know whether it's handmade manual collage or it's a digital one. Regardless, I think that they both achieve really great result when it comes to the aesthetics. So the aesthetics are very pleasant in both of these decks, and I do believe that they really share this atmosphere, this sort of grounding kind of motions, paired up at the same time with this sense of belonging to a cosmos. So for me, these decks are very important whenever we talk about personal practice and the way in which I use Tarot and Oracle decks in my personal practice for self-development and self-growth, because these are the kind of decks that really make you think. They give you pause, they give you the opportunity to journal, for example, especially because of the keywords that resonate a lot in the Oracle deck. But because generally speaking, and look how beautiful these look together. It's almost as if they were literally made, you know, as a match for each other, which is not really possible because they have not been made by the same author. It's not even the same publisher. And, you know, they just, each of them, well, the Radiant Wilds doesn't have preceding decks, but the Moonology has a couple of editions before this one that were centered on the same theme. So obviously everything that is related to the moon. But it's just the way in which they work together. It's just astonishing. It's a fantastic match. It is indeed. When I looked at the tag and I thought to myself, okay, which ones I'm going to choose to display in this VR, and I thought immediately, you know, the Moonology Messages and the Radiant Wilds, because they really have this kind of conversation happening between each other. And as I like to say, whenever I show a really good pairing like this one, I actually believe that you as a reader, myself as a reader, we need to take a step back sometimes and just let the cards talk to each other, and then understand and listen into the conversation, understand the message that is coming out of these beautiful decks. Look at the aesthetics. It just really, it sings. It's just a really beautiful song, isn't it? What I do most of the time, I also look for elements that repeat each other, but they also, you can also look for echoes and resonances wherever it concerns directionality. If two characters are looking at each other, if they're looking away from each other, if they're breaking the fourth wall and they're looking directly at you, the reader. If there's other elements that are very common and very similar, but in this case with these two decks, it's almost as if all of the elements were in common, because we've got a lot of celestial bodies, as you can imagine, in the Moonology deck. But we've got a lot of celestial bodies in the Tarot deck as well. So I really, really enjoy these two together. It's just the way in which they talk to each other, as I said before. It's just something to be, you know, you just take a step back and relax and admire them and listen into the conversation, because it's something that doesn't happen every day. And it's something that when it does happen, it speaks of how powerful the energies of these two decks together are. So I'm really, really liking this. I don't know if you feel the same. It's almost as if the tarot deck itself was morphing into some kind of a song, as I said before. Almost, you know, the oracle representing some kind of maybe chorus, and the tarot deck just, you know, reading the cards like that with its meaning, just telling the story of the song. Really, really beautiful. Absolutely, you know, if not the top one, it must be within the top 10 best deck pairs that I've ever seen in my life. And I was so stunned, because it's not done on purpose. I actually did some research. It's not the same author, obviously, and I do believe that there's a lot of similarities with other decks as well. So for example, if you have the Serpent Fire or the She-Wolf by the Bunny Wolf, or if you have the Muse Tarot by Chris Donnelly, you will notice that they pair up really well with those decks. The Moonology messages pair up really well with those decks as well. So these two, the Moonology messages and the Radiant Wilds Tarot. The next two decks that I really believe are a match made in heaven, because it's just absolutely stunning how beautiful these two look together, are the Savvy Soul Tarot by Judy Whitelash and the Outlaw Oracle. This is by Hilary Banks. Let me see if there's... So Hilary Banks Self, a creative design by Yana St. Levy. Sorry if I mispronounce the names. So these ladies are absolutely lovely. I had, ever since I displayed their deck on my channel and on my Instagram page, they've been so very supportive. I am so very thankful. Whenever a creator is supportive of their work through the channels and the social media platforms of us influencers, us, you know, tarot tubers, basically, people in the tarot community, is always very, very empowering, because we just help each other out. And, you know, in our case, being a tarot reader, I just show how well a tarot deck may work for other tarot readers. So it makes sense, you know, in some cases it just makes sense to promote each other, because it's just, we want other tarot readers to take advantage of how a deck reads, how well a deck reads. And of course, the creators of that specific deck are, you know, are happy to see their deck being used and displayed. So it's a win-win situation, and I'm really enjoying being part of this community whenever this happens. Because that's when you feel like you're not alone, you're not out there saying your things and just doing your things just for the sake of it, just for the sake of hearing your own voice, which is, to be honest with you, I hate the sound of my own voice. I think it's quite common for people to do that, because you're not used to it. You don't hear it the same way you hear it in your head when you hear it recorded. It doesn't sound the same. And so it's not, I don't do this for the pleasure of hearing my own voice, definitely not. I do this because I really love to create these meaningful connections throughout the tarot community. It's just what I really long for. So these two together are just a match made in heaven. It's not just the aesthetics that pair up really well together, it's the energies, it's the vibe that they have. It's a bit of both. I really love both of them. I can assure you 1000% my Parcel Tarot is my go-to tarot deck for readings, unless there is a specific question that makes me think that I could, you know, reach for a different deck. Whenever it's a general question, a general type of reading, I always use the Parcel Tarot. And now that I've got the Outlaw Oracle, I think I got it something like 4 weeks ago, something like that, and I haven't stopped using it. It is just staying on my desk, and because I'm moving soon, or hopefully I'm moving soon, I haven't found anything yet, but anyway. So when I'll be moving, you know, obviously I'm having trouble these days because I'm packing up a lot of things in boxes, and obviously I had to choose, I had to make a choice, which I can't leave outside all of my tarot decks or oracle decks, but I just can't bring myself to put these two in a box. They just have to stay out, and I think I'm gonna use them until the very last day, in which, you know, I'm gonna have the movers knocking on my door and saying, are you ready now? I'm still gonna be reading with these two decks together. Look how fantastic and powerful these two are. It's just unbelievable. It's not just the strength or the messages that you get when you combine the focus, the primary focus from the Outlaw Oracle. So in this case, for example, you have the image, of course, you have the photo, it's an eagle, but it also gives you the really insightful messages at the bottom with a higher perspective, foresight, and vision, which is, you know, it's perfect when you think about an eagle. It's absolutely that. You automatically think of those things when you see an eagle. And then, you know, you have that foresight and that vision that come from the tarot deck as well, confirmed and reinforced by the Hierophant card, which is, you know, referring back to tradition, referring back to that kind of vision and wisdom as well. And of course, you've got the Seven of Cups here, and that's a way to say, okay, you find yourself in a situation in which you don't necessarily know what to choose from because you're a bit tired, perhaps. So let's not forget that the Seven of Cups comes after the Six of Cups, which is a moment in which you just want to step back in time and remember and recall the memories of the past in which you didn't have anything to choose from. You had, everything was easier, you know, because you were a child and perhaps other people were making choices for you. But now you're a grown up and you have to make a decision, but it's so very daunting. Take your time, perhaps take a higher perspective, change your point of view, and use that wisdom in order to choose the right thing to do. Do you see how well these two pair up together? It's just, I can stay here and talk about these two forever, but you need to see for yourself. I highly encourage you to, you know, to try them out. Obviously, the Parcel Tarot, I honestly don't have any idea whether they're still stock or not at Julie's. I did reach out to her a couple of months ago, but I think she's very busy with other projects, so I don't know if she still has any deck left in stock. If she does, I highly recommend getting in touch with her. She's really lovely, just on her Instagram account at Parcel Tarot. And but I'll make sure to link it in the description box below. And when it comes to the Outlaw Oracle, I am sure 100% is still in stock, both at the creator's website, which I will link, but also at Tarot Stack, which is where I got it from. And I think there's other resellers around the world in any case. If you don't want to use Tarot Stack, or, you know, if you cannot buy directly from the creator, I think perhaps the Boutique London has it in stock or has had it in stock. I'm not entirely sure, though I don't want to say something that is not correct. But as I said before, I can talk about these two for hours, but I think that the most important thing is for you to actually see what I'm talking about. You know, it's looking at the keywords, looking at the images. Do they resonate with each other? Do they speak to each other? Do they have a conversation? Are they actually formulating some kind of a message that you need to understand? Because these two are not there for themselves, they're there for you. You are the one that picked them up, and you are the one that are, you know, making them talk, and you're the one that should listen to what they have to say to you, because chances are it's actually something rather important. So I adore these two, as I said before. It's just, I think they tick all the boxes, you know, aesthetically pleasing together, powerful vibes, really clear messages. I couldn't be happier. So the Outlaw Oracle and the Savvy Soul Tarot. The next two decks I'm going to show you paired up together are the Rosebud Tarot, and the When Olga Speaks Oracle. Now, the Rosebud Tarot, this is the mass market edition, Harper and Stillwell. It has been produced or released by Wiser Books. I've said that many times before. It's in one of those decks that I actually believe the indie version was, let's say, product-wise and value-wise, was slightly better. Because I've had this deck for a couple of months now, and because of the humidity, so it's not the publisher's fault, it's because of the humidity that we've had in the last couple of weeks here in Sydney. It's really bowing up, as you can tell, or probably not, but it's on camera it doesn't look as bad, but when you hold them or when you put them down, for example, it really dances like that. It rocks. And as I said, it wasn't like that when I got it. I really do believe that it's because of the humidity. However, it's also with a different cardstock, you would not have had the same kind of reaction, obviously. It's okay. I mean, the D&D edition also had a different backing, and I do believe that it was kind of nicer to look at. Having said that, I really appreciate this deck. It's really beautiful. It's again a collage kind of deck, which is why I love pairing it up with the When Olga Speaks Oracle, which is this one here. Now, this one is a very limited run of 200 copies that has been made available by the creator. So the Instagram account is at Artsy Girls Be Like. I will, as usual, link it in the description box below. Just for you to know, there is confirmation that there will be a relaunch on the Kickstarter in, well, probably in a couple of months. So if you like this deck and you missed out on the Make Plain Cards run, you can definitely, get it for the Kickstarter. So these two are very common. There's a very common artistic style in the sense that they're both artistically made photo collages, but there's something to them that counts. So what I really like is the bouncing between the black and white or the gray, the scale of gray images that really stands out of a color kind of background, and it's very similar and common to both the Oracle deck and the Tarot deck. So it's, again, it's a match made in heaven, because you didn't necessarily start like that. It was not necessarily a pair that was made. The author, for example, or the creator of the When Olga Speaks did not make this deck because she wanted to have a tarot, an Oracle deck to pair up with the Rosebud Tarot. But it does feel like there is this very strong participation in both of these decks. So there's a conversation going on. There's this coming and going of the energies. And in this case, it doesn't always happen. It depends on the decks and the vibes that they have. But in this case, I do believe that there is a really strong bridge that you can feel coming out of the Oracle deck. Now, it's called When Olga Speaks because Olga was the name of the author's or the creator's grandmother. And she was a lovely lady who obviously had that kind of ancestral wisdom. And for each and every situation, she had, something to say to make everyone feel better, or at least to make everyone understand what was going on. Because sometimes we're just taken by the whirlwind of events and we don't necessarily realize what is it that is going on. And I love the way in which this wisdom has been embodied with these images, and it's also been, resonating with the sentences and the messages that are at the bottom of the cards. Sometimes there's just a keyword, like in this case, evoke, but other times there's a whole sentence. Like for example, we just saw this one, the cave you fear to enter, which is absolutely fantastic. Really love this card. So as I said, these two really great conversation between each other. And again, you just, you stay out of it because you just want to hear it. You want to hear it, you want to understand it, you're almost eavesdropping, because there's something, the energy is so strong between these two that they don't need you. You're just the one that is flipping the cards like that, and it's absolutely fine. How beautiful is, you know, the energy that comes out of these two together. It's just really, it's a privilege. Let me tell you, it's actually a privilege to see something like this taking place, something like this going on, because you don't see it all the time. You don't. It's just something that you're really making it happen and creating something by creating this kind of bond between these two decks. So, as I said, the Rosebud Tarot and the Oracle is called When Olga Speaks. The next two decks out of my top 10 deck pairs are the Modern Seer Tarot, paired up with the Vessel Oracle. These two, it was just a revelation. It was just, I don't know, it was like out of a storm, a lightning storm, you see a ray of light, and it was just unbelievable. Now, the only thing is that, again, I apologize, I believe that the Modern Seer Tarot is actually out of print. So what happened was that because at the beginning I just did some research, very, you know, very light kind of research, not very thorough. So what happened was that I just Googled it and I saw that there was a page on Kickstarter. So if you go to the Kickstarter, the original Kickstarter for this deck, there is still a reference to a website. And when I saw the website, I did not actually check, and I thought, okay, well, there is a website, so perhaps you know, it's still available, or at least there is a contact that you can have with someone that might be able to tell you. Unfortunately, when I did some research, some further research, because I really wanted this deck and I was thinking about gifting it to a friend of mine that really likes this kind of artwork as well, I went into that website, modernseertarot.com, I think it is, and it just brought me to an unregistered website, you know, a domain. So we know when if that happens, when, for example, you've got a website and you don't pay for the registration anymore for the domain, to keep the domain. So there is, you know, it has been used before, it has been created by someone, but because they did not renew the fee, the licensing fee, then it goes back into the market, so someone else can actually claim it. And it's one of those, that's what happened. And I was really gutted because I really wanted to buy another copy of this deck. It is just so beautiful. But unfortunately, it couldn't be done. The way in which I got this deck, I was very lucky because I found someone on Facebook that was parting ways with it. And it came to me slightly damaged, which is fine. There were some chips on the sides and on the cards themselves. But as I said, you know, not being able to find it anywhere else kind of made the decision for me. And I am so very glad that I did get it in the end, because as you can see, it's got this kind of really powerful kind of images that are coming out of the card, even though it's a very minimalistic kind of art style. So this is a line drawing, and it's unbelievable because, you know, there's very few lines, but very few times in which the artist was detaching the pen from the canvas. It's almost as if all of it is a continuous kind of line, which is absolutely amazing. Now, the artist's name is Christine McGraw, but when you actually do some Googling, because I did really do a lot of research on this deck just to be able to say something more when I'm showcasing it. When you do some research on Kristen, so the artist, you'll see that they're still selling some of their work on a few art websites. So I guess those websites where you log in and you can buy art online. But unfortunately, she's not selling, or they, I'm not sure about the nouns, I'm sorry about that. So they're not selling the tarot, not even, there's not even a mentioning of the tarot, which is very odd, because I believe that it's so beautiful. You know, if I were the artist behind this tarot deck, I would be incredibly proud of it, and I will be displaying it every time I can. And on top of everything, Kristen's art is not really this kind of art, so it's not, there are different artists that use this kind of technique, but her typical, let's say, production is not line work like that. It's still beautiful, obviously, but if you enjoy this one and you wanted this deck because of the specific art technique, and you thought that perhaps other works by her were the same, unfortunately they're not. They're still beautiful, but it's nothing to do with that. But in the meantime, I hope that through all of my talking, you're just realizing how beautiful these two are together. It's because of the simplicity, the elegance of the simplicity of the line work. It just works. It's just a minimalist, even when it comes to the color palette, of course, on the Vessel Oracle, you still see that it's not a full spectrum of colors. It's very minimalist as well. It's just really, really working. And I absolutely adore the messages that come out of these. So the Hierophant and the Nine of Pentacles with rest in the middle. You know, there's always, once you achieve the nine is almost there. You see the light at the end of the tunnel. You're almost there. But you need to, it's the wisdom that comes from the experience tells you that you have to take a bit of a rest perhaps, because you've already achieved a lot. You haven't finished, you know, your task yet. You haven't accomplished whatever it was that you set out to do. You're almost there, but perhaps take your time and also to enjoy the ride. So these two absolutely stunning together. They read really well, the Modern Seer Tarot and the Vessel Oracle. The next pair I'm going to show you, it's kind of an odd one out in the sense that no one would probably think that these two will work together. Let me show you why. So this one is rather popular. It's the Crystal Grid Oracle. This is the deluxe edition by Rockpool, yes. And it's the 72 cards deck, because there was a previous edition with only 36 cards. This one is the bigger one. Now, let's just take it out for a second. The reason why I'm saying that no one would think that these two works together, because if you're familiar with this deck, so this is Tarot as color. I'm not even going to attempt to pronounce the name of the artist the right way, but it's this one here. So this deck can only be bought at Fulgur Press, which is also the same press company that released a few years ago the tarot, the major arcana from Leonora Carrington work. And I got news for you. If you like the Leonora Carrington tarot, the major arcanas, and you missed out and you don't want to pay $250 US for it, Fulgur Press has announced a couple of weeks ago that they will reprint. So it will soon be reprinted. You just have to sign up to their newsletter to know when, or if you follow them on Instagram, they will announce it anyway. I am so very stoked because I'm one of those that, you know, missed out on the first edition, and I was gutted because I really, really like everything made by Leonora Carrington. She's one of my favorite artists when it comes to that, you know, that kind of awareness of the occult as well, because she was really into tarot. She was really into the occult. Last year I actually went to a exhibition in Venice where there were all of these artists that were into the occult in at the beginning of the 1900s. And there were a lot of her works, and they were just displayed there, and it was just absolutely amazing for me to be able to be there in presence, you know, physically, and see the artwork and the detail and the depth of, for example, even the way in which the brushstroke were made on the canvas is just absolutely fantastic. It was a really strong kind of feeling. So I highly, if you do like Leonora Carrington's work and you don't have the tarot deck, as I said before, I highly recommend signing up for the newsletter at Fulgur Press, because when they're going to announce it, there's going to be, I think there's going to be a lot of people trying to get their hands on a copy. So you might want to be the first one there. But going back to these two, so Tarot Scholar has got nothing to do with Leonora Carrington. As you can see, it's a very abstract kind of deck, abstract kind of art. And as a matter of fact, if you read about this deck, you will see that the intent of the artist was not to create a divination tool. This is not intended to be used for readings. This tarot is intended to facilitate meditation, for example. Personally, I actually do readings with it as well. I think it really works because it does, the abstract character or the artwork does give you the possibility to focus on the cards themselves and on the messages. There's keywords, or rather titles, at the bottom of the cards. For example, the Ace of Cups is called the Root of the Powers of Water, and the Three of Discs is called the Lord of Material Works. So what I do is I definitely take in, for example, the artwork in the cards, but I also look at the titles, and I just let my mind wander. And what really helps to bring the mind back into the grounding that you need whenever you're interpreting the message of a tarot is using the crystal grid, because the crystal grid oracle, yes, of course you have the crystal grid, and that requires a little bit of knowledge from your side when it comes to crystals. But I noticed that using it in the last few days, that it can be used just merely as an oracle deck, in the sense that it's got enough going on when you look at the keyword associated with the crystals displayed in the grid. So I'm actually really enjoying this conversation that is taking place, and this combination is rather talkative. It's a talkative one, and yeah, I really enjoy it. Something that you know, it makes me happy to see how well these two pair up together, even though the odds were against, well, pretty much they were against the Tarot Scholar, because it's a difficult deck to pair up. I tried to pair it up with the Sacred Symbol Oracle deck, and it kind of worked for a few cards, but not for all of the cards, because the Sacred Symbol may have a shift in the color palette for a few cards. So the cards that were kind of in only one color, they were kind of clashing with the abstract colors of the tarot deck. I don't know if it makes sense, but in any case, it was not a good pairing for me. So I was kind of desperate. I was thinking, well, what am I going to use it with, if I'm going to use it with an oracle deck at all? Because at a certain point, it was not even the intention of the creator for the deck to be used that way. But I do believe that, you know, when you use it with this oracle deck, it's actually really bringing up all of the beauty and the depth of the tarot deck as well. Look, I don't know, is it just me? Let me know, because I'm curious. I mean, if you have the tarot color in your collection, let me know how you use it. Do you use it specifically for meditation? Do you look at the cards? Do you just use it for, I don't know, for readings, even though it's really large, it's a rather large kind of size? Or do you like this combination? Do you think that it actually speaks to you or not? So this is the Tarot as color, and this is the Crystal Grid Oracle. The next two decks I want to show you together are the Mind's Eye Tarot by Olivia Rose and the Soul Mirror Oracle See Yourself by Sunshine Connolly, artwork by Anna Noves. Now this deck is published by Blue Angel. This is a US game release. I have to say sorry, because this deck is actually just released in Australia. I actually checked this morning, and not even, let's say, everywhere. I think you can still get it, perhaps on pre-order on Amazon US. In any case, I will put the a link in the description box below, but just for you to know, it might not be currently available, but will be soon, if not already. Because sometimes, you see, they actually write down perhaps being released on the 20th of October or something like that, and then you look at the card, you put it in the card, and it's already available to ship. That happened to me a couple of times, so I don't know whether that was a mistake in the when they produced the listing first, that they thought that it was coming out later, and then they just had it in stock and they happened to just ship it out, or you know, it's, I don't know, I honestly don't know, maybe they thought they were not going to get any stock until later, and they didn't update the listing. I have no idea. In any case, it's a beautiful, fantastic deck. If you haven't seen it, it's just the end of the world. The artwork is phenomenal. The color palette is fantastic. The cardstock is one of those latest Blue Angel, which is so very buttery and silky at the same time, but the cards don't stick together. It's been gilded with matte gold, which is really beautiful. It's a 42, I think, cards deck, which is, you know, I would have preferred 44 at least, but that's still okay. Kind of an odd number, 42. You always see 44, but that's fine. And obviously you've got a really interesting guidebook as well. I often pull this card, Curiosity, and I absolutely love the kitten here. So the interesting thing is that in the cards, for example, you can actually see a light meaning and a shadow meaning refer to the keywords, which is very, very interesting and very versatile. So obviously you can use it for your shadow work and your light work as well. What I'm going to do, let's see if I can zoom in a little bit. So there's a lot going on between these two decks in the sense that you can see how busy the Mind's Eye Tarot is. Now, Olivia Rose is also the creator of the Heart's Eye Oracle and the Mermaid's Purse Oracle. I think that the two oracles are indie, at least for now. You can still find them. I think they're still available. Whereas the tarot deck, as I said before, it's a US Games publication. I don't even think that it was an indie deck to start with. I could be wrong though. There could have been a Kickstarter, for example. Now, this is one of those pairings that at the beginning you wonder whether it would actually work or not, because there's a lot going on. As I said, there's really a lot going on in the artwork in the tarot deck because of the richness of the light work. There's a lot of busyness of colors as well. There's really beautiful colors, by the way, absolutely stunning. Whereas we have kind of the opposite on the oracle, because we have a lot of very interesting use of a cutout figure, for example, like in this case. So the use of the blank spaces that speaks a lot, because it's the absence that at a certain point produces just as powerful a message as a presence, for example. So we need to understand whether there's a lot of voices going on in this conversation. Is this a 501 situation in which everyone thinks they're a chef and they want to give orders? Or is this something that actually makes sense? And I kindly invite you to, if you have these decks, I kindly invite you to try these pairings out, because I tried that out 3-4 times and I can assure you 1000% it really, really works. There's some really stunning messages in the cards. So of course we got perceptive, you know, with the Queen of Cups and and also with the Eight of Wands. So we've got in here, for example, we can do a lot of self-development work when we get something like that, because it's referring back to the light and the shadow meaning of the word perceptive. But if you relate the word perceptive as a keyword to the Queen of Cups, you will see that oblivious and aware are actually the light and the shadow meaning of the card itself. So and this happens all the time. There are so many correspondences between not just the art style, but especially with the keywords and the meaning of the cards. It keeps on happening. Limits, for example, between the Emperor and the Seven of Pentacles. So limits, limited and limitless. What's the Emperor if not the card that talks about this, having to re-establish order into the chaos by putting some limits up, raising up some boundaries. So while the Emperor is doing that, is it something that limits? So is it limited, or it actually opening up to other possibilities by becoming limitless? So this is I really, as I said before, if you have these two decks, they're both very affordable. So both mass market. One is Blue Angel and one is US Games. And I really invite you to try them together, because you will see how much I love these two. Learning and knowledge are both with their eyes closed, but learning, it looks as if she's going to pry open the eyes that are closing her vision, that are limited her vision, because she's learning, so she's opening up to something new. Where knowledge, in a way, is when you accept that you know already everything and you don't want to open your eyes to something new. So this is, you know, ties back to the tarot. For example, we have the World. the world can represent the maximum knowledge. So you have completed that cycle. The hero's journey or the fool's journey has reached his destination. And you would imagine that the knowledge gained during this process was something he was looking for and something that he's been fighting for, the fool. However, has the fool at the end of this cycle become ignorant or knowing? Because we don't necessarily know that, and that until we confront ourselves with what we know and what others know. So that from the world, you have to become a fool again after the world, because you have to test what you've learned in order to be able to then learn even more. The Page of Pentacles, the intuition card between the Page of Pentacles and the Moon, of course the intuition refers back to the Moon, and it gives you the possibility to see how the Page of Pentacles need to take one direction or another. Is it confused? Yes, pages could be confused. The Page of Pentacles even more so, because they want to go back to that side of nature they feel attuned to. But they need to be aware that it's not just in the natural world that they can find their own path, it's also within themselves. So as you can see, it's a conversational starter. It's something that can really help you do a lot of that kind of shadow work and light work that you need to do. Whether you have a tarot practice and you have your clients coming to you, whether you yourself read the cards, to complete your self-worth path. It depends on what you want to do, but these two decks together, they're absolutely fantastic, and I highly, highly recommend them. I really, especially if you need to buy just one of these two, just buy the Soul Mirror Oracle, because it's fantastic. And we've got Frida as well. You know, if we needed something else, a different reason to get this deck, we also have Frida. Well, there you go. So the Mind's Eye Tarot and the Soul Mirror Oracle. So the next pair is actually a bit of a homage to this season, because you know how much I love the Halloween season. Unfortunately for us in the Southern Hemisphere, we don't call it, it's not Samhain, obviously the Wheel of the Year, we are at the opposite side. But it is Samhain in the Northern Hemisphere, which is coinciding with the Halloween. And because of that, I thought about, pairing up. I thought about a deck that would pair up really well with the Seasons of the Witch Samhain Oracle. Now this one is I think it's the first one that they published, this by Rockpool. And it has been created and illustrated by Lorian Anderson and Juliet Diaz, illustrated by Jada Royce. Now this deck, recently they published the Mabon, and in a couple of months they're going to publish the in bulk edition as well. And I think that from Mabon onwards, so in bulk as well, they actually changed the illustrator. They also changed a couple of things about the let's say the setup of the deck. If you remember, this deck has got some kind of poems at the bottom. Of course, you have the image, you have the keyword referring to the image, and then you've got a message, but it was, let's say, a message put in poetry, which for many, so I've talked about this in a video where I was showcasing the Mabon deck. And the Mabon edition does not have, it's got messages but not poems, so they're not in a lyrical kind of form. And I got a lot of messages from people saying that they are so very grateful, because I thought I was the only one finding it difficult, because obviously English is not my primary language, and as a consequence, whenever I was reading with these decks, the poem was kind of distracting for me. I felt like it was lifting myself up from the reading, and I had to kind of focus on the poem to just understand what the message was, which is not always something you want, especially when you're reading for a client. You don't want to lose attention on these kind of details. And I received a lot of messages with people saying, even English speakers, as a primary language, saying that they found that distracting as well. And at the same time, others saying that they were sorry that the new editions don't have poems anymore, because they really liked it. So, obviously to each their own. I think that these two pair up really well together. Sorry, did I say which tarot this is? This is the Ferenc Pinter tarot. Now, Ferenc Pinter is an author, a painter that I think his mom was Italian and his dad was Hungarian, so he was born in Milano, but then he spent part of his youth years in Budapest, and after that he went back to Italy. I think he spent part of his life, you know, going back and forth between those two countries. It is an incredibly beautiful kind of art style. I really, really like it. It's that kind of art that you may find, you know, there's other artists that remind me of this style. For example, one that comes to mind, Vetriano. Vetriano was indeed, this card reminds me of Vetriano a lot, because he was painting very often tango dancers, and that was a really beautiful card. Now these two, I don't know, is that still one of the category that you know, it starts by saying these two should really not work together, and yet when you do use them together, it kind of does. What do you think? How do you feel by looking at the images? I think these two really work. It is obviously not the same kind of art style, even though the color palette is very similar. But what I do appreciate is the fact that you can still use, if in my case, I need not to pay attention to the message at the bottom of the card for the Oracle deck, because as I said before, it is kind of distracting for me. However, if I only focus, for example, on the keyword and the image, then I can definitely create this kind of connection between the two decks. And because the Ferenc Pinter somehow has a little bit of a darkness to it, there is some kind of, you kind of see what the author, what the painter was thinking about when painting these images. There's a little bit of troubled mind here, and it comes to the surface. You can feel it coming out of the canvas. I mean, some of these cards are not disturbing. I don't want to say that, because it's actually really bad connotation to say that, and I don't think that they are disturbing. On the contrary, I think that they are exposing human feelings and human emotion in such a way that it's very clear. It's a very clear message. And when something like that happens, then it means, it's my opinion, but it means that an artwork is actually communicating something effectively. So it's you know, it's a good work of art because it successfully communicated a message. So I really, really find these two very intense, very strong and powerful together. I really appreciate, even here, for example, these two characters do not share the same artwork, if you want, not even the same kind of brush strokes, not even the same kind of color palette, and yet the eyes are piercing the fourth wall so strongly that they really invite you into the reading with the same kind of intensity. And if you look at the Sun card and the expression on the person, on the character on the Sun card, you see exactly the same kind of strength. So obviously we're talking about Banshees and the Queen of Pentacles and the Sun, but it is something that you feel that it's one of those decks that you need to know the meanings of the cards as a basic to start with, but then you need to let your intuition you know, take you where it wants, because there's a lot that can be said, you know, when looking at these cards. They are so very evocative, both of them, and I really, really like the way in which you can, you know, look at these cards together. So Spider between the Strength and the Six of Pentacles, which is so very beautiful. This Strength card is probably one of my favorite ones. There is so much going on in this card. There's this kind of awareness and strength communicated by the muscles in the person, but it's also by the ferocity of the animal. You don't often find lions this ferocious, or animals that represent the fierceness and the battle taking place with this much ferocity going on. Look at the teeth, for example. You know, it's something that really comes out of the card. It's a message that talks about, because this person needs to be even more strong than what we think. So there's always that little bit of us left, even when we believe that we are exhausted, we have nothing left to give or nothing left to use, no more energy. We still can find something because we are that powerful to begin with. So it's such an amazing combination, again, rooted between Death and the King of Pentacles. Absolutely gorgeous. So let me know what you think, because I know that the Seasons of the Witch Samhain Oracle can be paired up with a lot of other decks, without a doubt. It's a very versatile deck. But I've never actually seen it paired up with the Ferenc Pinto. I'm curious to see what you think about it. So again, Ferenc Pinto Tarot and the Seasons of the Witch Samhain Oracle. The next pair I want to show you today is one of my favorite decks. I literally fell in love with in 2023, which is Le Tarot de Paysage Intérieur, so the Tarot of the Inner Landscapes by Camille. Camille, she's French and she's a painter. She made this deck, and it's just, I think that now she's still on a second print, but it's getting low in availability. I'll make sure to link her Etsy shop in the description box below. It is an absolute joy to have this deck. Everything about it I just love. The color palette is just the kind of color that I really like. The interpretation of Camille, when it comes to the cards, it's a very interesting, kind of different, a new and fresh perspective that you like to find every now and then in a tarot deck, because you know we can all write books on how to interpret the cards if we follow the RWS, but in many cases there's a lot going on in this card, because it's a kind of an abstract kind of painting or art style. There's actually a lot going on in these cards that we don't necessarily always associate with the RWS. The reason why, if you watch my channel, you probably hear me talking about the Three of Swords over and over again, and it is the reason why I fell in love with this deck, because this is a person that has been worrying about something that gives him anxiety so much that they're just pacing their way through this problem. And what everyone is noticing as well out of this card is the fact that two of the swords are actually pointed towards the person, but one of the swords is actually pointing outward. So it's always referring to the saying, as within, so without. So what we create, the kind of worry we create and we feel because we're overthinking, is the number 3, the growth in the suit of the mind is the overthinking. And it's also projecting outside of ourselves. So it's not just something that influences our problems, our the way of seeing our problems, but also the way in which we react to the world that is this Three of Swords situation. So this deck is absolutely superb. Now, generally speaking, I would pair it up with the Death Doula because it pairs up really well. However, that goes for very intense and powerful shadow work. If you pair it up, I noticed that if you pair it up with the Nature Sealing Chi Oracle by Denise Robinson and artwork by Jane Curtis by the Bybee Kinesiology. So this combo, this duo is actually Australian. I'll put the link in the description box below. It's a really beautiful deck. And it kind of softens the blow. And I'll show you what I mean with this, because Camille's deck, so the tarot deck, is very beautiful, but when obviously you're pairing up with an oracle, you need to understand that every time you pair up a tarot deck with an oracle deck, it kind of takes the energy of the oracle. And the Death Doula is a very powerful oracle deck, but in many cases paired up with this tarot deck, it kind of brings you to a very specific kind of shadow work, as I said before, and you don't always necessarily want to do that. In some cases you just want something for inspiration. So using the Nature Sealing Chi Oracle, I found that it's an excellent pair because it really softens up the tarot deck as well. And the artwork is, if not similar, it does have some kind of similarities, some kind of resonances, and I really enjoy it. The color palette is also kind of a muted color palette in the oracle deck, so it kind of goes well with the tarot. So it's a really, really beautiful combo. Again, I think that we really feel how these two are taking place, their conversation is taking place in a realm which is just for us to look at and, you know, and listen in and understand what they're saying, what the message is, and then for us to understand it and try and make it ours. But it's just something that really goes beyond sometimes our comprehension. And that's something that I really admire when two decks pair up in such a beautiful way together, that they actually go out of what we assign to them as energies and vibe, because they have their own way to pair up. They have their own way to communicate. And that's what we need to focus on, because that's the only way in which we can learn something new. So when we stop seeing everything as categorized by our own perception, when we accept that there might be something different going on within the cards, that's when we start, you know, learning something else, learning something new, and understand a different language. Look how beautiful these two are together. I mean, it's just, this is the Ace of Pentacles, by the way. So the Queen of Wands and the Ace of Pentacles, and we got as a key message, we got stability, which is absolutely, it's something that the Queen of Wands probably needs, that kind of going back to nature to gain instability, because the Queen of Wands is notoriously not the most stable one of the queens. So as I said, really, really beautiful pair. Absolutely stunning images in both of the decks, I have to say. Absolutely both of the decks. And I'm very, very happy that I was so lucky to get this tarot deck, because it comes with a bit of a story, in the sense that at the beginning there was a little bit of problems with the shipping, but Camille was absolutely lovely, and she made sure that I was going to get it. And I am so very grateful for that, because it's one of those decks that you really thank, you know, the combination of events that led you to have this. You know what I mean? Has it happened before to you? It's something that, to me, it happens all the time, thankfully. I'm very grateful for that. But I think to myself, if I hadn't been on Instagram that day, if I hadn't seen someone liking that particular photo, I wouldn't have noticed that account, I wouldn't have noticed the deck, and I wouldn't have wanted it. And how many decks, who knows how many decks are out there that I really would fall in love with if I had the chance to see them. And how lucky am I that I've actually seen this deck. So I highly recommend both of these. Absolutely a joy to use them together. So we got the Le Tarot de Paysage Intérieur, and sorry, this one is the Tarot, and the Nature Healing Chi Oracle. The next plant I want to show you is with these two decks. So they both, you know, have the word Earth in their title. So we got the Earth Blessings Oracle cards by Liz Dean, and the Blue Earth Tarot by Alison Davis. What I want to say though is that Alison Davis's deck, even though it does say Blue Earth, is actually, to me, it feels like a very watery kind of deck. Which is ironic, because I could have paired it up with, so if you're not familiar with this oracle deck, it's been published by Welbeck Balance, and there's a series of decks and oracle decks that have been published, and this is the Earth edition. There's a water edition as well. There will be a fire and an air edition in the future, and there's also a dream interpretation oracle cards. They're all absolutely fantastic. I highly recommend the very affordable mass market decks. This is an indie deck, for example. As always, everything will be linked below. Let's have a look at how these two communicate with each other, because I really do believe that the Blue Earth, I actually tried to pair it up with the water, let's say, edition of these oracle. And yet, I still believe that it pairs up a lot better with this version, so the earthy kind of deck. Perhaps because this deck needs a bit of a complementary deck, as opposed to a similar one. But let's have a look. So, By the way, the style of these decks for the Welbeck Balance Publishing, they're all the same. So the shape is all of them the same shape. So this is slightly bigger than, as you can tell, it's slightly bigger than the slightly wider and slightly taller than the standard tarot size, and it's also a let's say a bit of a different kind of feel. You've got this kind of papery kind of feel, which is very interesting, very soft to the touch. It is a rather larger kind of format, therefore you would think that it's probably a bit flimsy, but it's not that kind of feel. It's actually it's got quite a bounce to it, so I'm actually really a fan of this production value. And for $20 or $24 Australian that I pay for it, I mean, I don't expect the top of the quality, and yet still it's really good in any case. But let's have a look at how they pair up together. So as I said before, the Blue Earth, to me, because of the colors especially, has got that kind of watery kind of energy. And it's also because, you know, cups are, these looks like tears, or, you know, they could be just drops of water, but they look like tears. The pentacles look like hands. Wands are wands or branches. Whereas when you go and refer back to the oracle, you feel this calmness coming out of the cards. So this oracle deck is divided in 4 seasons, but it is that kind of really calm sense of peace, when peace is achieved after turmoil. So you actually had to, you know, battle to fight in order to achieve that kind of peace, and because of that, it's never taken for granted. And that's the feel that you get out of this deck. I really love these two together. They shouldn't, again, it's one of those pairings where it shouldn't work, but somehow it does. And again, so very grateful that it does, because you do get to enjoy the decks you have a lot more. It's I think that pairing tarot and oracle decks really gives you the possibility to look at your collection in a different way. It's like it was giving you the possibility to discover your decks all over again, as if you were just buying them for the and looking at them for the first time, because, you know, this combination really it lightens up the tone of the oracle, of the tarot deck, for example, as in many cases we've seen before, but it also gives you a much deeper understanding of the message that you could have by using perhaps just the oracle by itself. And so I really, really enjoy doing this. If you watch my channel, you will know how much I enjoy doing these kind of readings with you know, a pairing. Because it's that's when magic happens. That's when you're really attuned to the message, and you really kind of understand even more. But let me know what you think. As always, I'm always open-minded, and you know, if you think that, for example, the Blue Earth Tarot pairs up really well with the Endless Oracle by Eric Mell. I don't have that oracle, unfortunately, but it does pair up really well. I've seen it on Instagram a couple of times, and I thought to myself that really is a nice combo. But I believe it pairs up really well with this oracle as well. So we've got the Blue Earth Tarot by Alison Davis and the Earth Blessings Oracle cards by Liz Dean. And last but not least, I want to show you how these two decks pair up so well together. So we're looking at the Spirit Keepers Tarot Revelation Edition. This is the second print that has just been distributed, I think, a couple of months ago. And the Citadel Oracle by Fez and Cricht. This is a Liminal 11 production. This is an indie deck by Bybee Wen. Bybee is absolutely the most knowledgeable person when it comes to not just tarot and oracle, but she's just released a book on the I Ching, for example, and that's really interesting. If it's open, if it's available on Amazon, I just have to check, you know, if it's available on Amazon Australia, because I really want to read it. All of the books are so very interesting. They are full of knowledge. There's so many references. Also, all of the videos are absolutely incredible to learn about tarot. Her decks are collectible items. I have 2 copies. It's just incredible how beautiful and how dense and rich of, you know, artwork and symbology and elements her decks are. In some cases, you can even imagine that it's very busy. It's a very busy kind of deck, but it kind of works with this oracle. So if you don't know this oracle deck, it's got an hexagonal kind of shape, which I have to admit I'm not a fan of. It's just, you know, I'm kind of a aficionado to the standard tarot shape, but it doesn't matter. I mean, if it works, right? So why being difficult? I'm not being difficult, I'm just saying what my preferences are. So these 2 together, again, it might not be, you know, people might think that it doesn't necessarily work, but it kind of does. Perhaps because of the fact that they're both quite busy. But they kind of, you know, it helps you when you have this kind of busyness in a deck. It kind of helps you to focus on just one element, when you just choose to focus on one thing rather than having to take all of it in at the same time. And I think that when it comes to the artwork, for example, when it comes to the color palette, when it comes to the even the way in which these 2 decks express themselves. So you've got, with Bybee deck, you've got all of the symbols of the elements, you've got the title, you've got the trigram symbol, you've got well, all of the symbols on the card as well, but you also have a kind of a title at the bottom. Whereas when it comes to the oracle, you've got the image, a title, you still have the symbol, and you got a couple of additional keywords. If you just choose to focus on one or the other, let me assure you that it works. It's a very beautiful combo. It just works. And let me just say, so if you're not familiar with Bybee's evolution in her decks, basically this edition, which is the second run or edition of the Spirit Keeper's Tarot Revelation, is more colorful. So she's actually gradually increased the saturation of the colors. She's done a couple of other modifications. To be honest with you, I refer back to her channel because I don't necessarily remember the process she's applied to the production of this deck. But what I do remember is that compared to the other edition that I have, the colors are more saturated and more vibrant. And I really like that. I really like the effect. It's really beautiful. And this looks like Bybee, by the way. But what I choose to do whenever I look at these 2 decks together is indeed, I'm just going to focus on one key element. So for example, what do we have here? We've got the Fate, accepting help or guidance, and we got the 6 of Chalices, so they keep the 6 of Cups, but it's also called the Memory Keeper, and the Hollow Flame with the Ace of Scepters, the Awakening. So the Scepters is the Wands, the suit of Wands. So we've got the Fate, accepting help. Perhaps we need to remind ourselves of a situation in which we thought we were safe, because we're just taking refuge in the 6 of Cups. And 6 of Cups come after the 5 of Cups, in which we felt like we were at a loss. We lost something that in many cases we attribute way too much importance to, because let's not forget that one of the keywords associated with the 5 of Cups is crying over spilled milk. And then we take refuge in the memories of a past that was void of complications. But in this case, we need to accept the guidance of perhaps someone with, you know, more a fiery kind of energy. So as you can see, there's still this kind of conversation going on between the 2 decks. I really, I'm just, every time I can find this kind of, you know, combo going on, this kind of exchange of energy, this kind of bridge that is being built between the decks, I'm always so very happy, because as I said before, it's a new way to look at your collection. It's almost as if you had a different deck every time. So I highly recommend, even if you don't like this specific combination or any other that I've shown you today, I highly recommend taking up on you know, these kind of combinations, because it will give you a different way of looking at tarot and oracle decks. So this was the last one on my top 10 deck pairs, ABR to Art Garden Oracle. Thank you so much for staying with me till the end of this video. More to come. Have a great day.